You know that kind of heartbreak that makes you forget how to breathe?
Yeah.
Mine came with a smirk, a tailored suit, and a contract that nearly sold my soul. I met him on a rainy Tuesday in Manhattan, the kind of day when the whole city seemed to be crying for me. I just walked out of my final psychology lecture, broke, exhausted, and one bad decision away from giving up on everything. I thought I'd left control behind when I escaped my ex, the professor who owned me like I was a science experiment. But the universe has a dark sense of humor. That's when I met Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cole Industries. Rich, brilliant, dangerous, and the last man on earth I should have fallen for. He offered me a job that night, not because I was qualified but because he saw something in me, something I didn't even know I had left. "You're too quiet," he said, his eyes sharp, assessing. "Quiet men are either broken or plotting something." He wasn't wrong. I was both. The next day, I stepped into his world, a high-rise empire built on ambition, power, and the kind of silence that screams louder than words. Every employee feared him. Every rumor said he was heartless. But beneath the marble floors and glass walls, I sensed something darker, something lonely, and maybe that's what drew me in. I wasn't supposed to look at him that way. Not when he was my boss. Not when every glance between us felt like standing on the edge of a skyscraper, one wrong step, and I'd fall. But every time our eyes met across that cold office, something in his stare thawed the ice inside me. "Don't," he said once, his voice trembling like he hated himself for caring. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" I whispered. "Like you see me." He turned away before I could answer. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that single breath between us would unravel everything. The first few weeks were torture. Ethan demanded perfection. I worked 16-hour days drafting proposals, researching competitors, and avoiding the magnetic pull of his presence. Yet, every late night we shared in that glass office blurred the line between hate and desire. He'd lean over my desk, his cologne sharp and clean, his breath warm on my neck as he corrected my reports. My pulse would race and I'd pretend it was just stress. But deep down, I knew better. He was chaos dressed in Armani, and I was the fool who wanted to touch the flame. One night, when the rain painted silver streaks across the city windows, he broke. "You don't belong here," Ethan said, his voice raw. "You think this job saves you, but all it's doing is turning you into me." I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped closer. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. His jaw clenched. His eyes burned with something between fury and longing. "You don't know what I've done. Then tell me." He didn't. He just stared, and in that silence, every wall between us began to crack. I saw it then, the pain beneath his perfection, the man behind the mask. And for the first time, he let me see it too. The truth came slowly, piece by piece. Ethan wasn't just powerful, he was haunted. His father's empire had been built on manipulation, lies, and blood. He'd spent his whole life running from that shadow, trying to prove he wasn't like the man who destroyed him. But power corrupts even when you think you're using it for good. And love ruins everything. He began pushing me away harder each time. He'd find excuses to yell, to belittle my work, to make me hate him. I didn't. I saw through it. "You're not trying to protect me," I said one night, when he fired me for the third time that month. "You're trying to protect yourself." He froze. The room went still. "I can't love you," he whispered, voice cracking, "because everything I love, I destroy." I walked up to him, slowly, my heart pounding so loud I thought the walls might shatter. "Then destroy me," I said. "But don't you dare pretend you don't feel this." He looked at me like he was drowning, and I was both the lifeboat and the storm. That was the night he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't even kind. It was desperate, like two broken men trying to breathe through each other's scars. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against mine. "I warned you," he said, voice trembling. "I know," I whispered. "And I'm still here." The next morning, he didn't come to work. His office was locked, his desk empty. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of a scandal, of a hostile takeover. I tried calling him, texting him. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. But I knew him too well to believe he was gone. And I wasn't about to let the man who taught me how to fight for myself disappear without a fight. So I did what I swore I'd never do again. I took control. I hacked into company archives, uncovered documents Ethan had buried for years, proof of his father's crimes, and the corruption still infecting coal industries. The same darkness Ethan had spent his life trying to destroy. That's when I realized he hadn't run away. He was protecting me. He'd taken the blame for a deal gone wrong, a crime he didn't commit just to keep my name clean. And once again, I was standing in the middle of a storm I didn't create. But this time, I refused to drown. The next 72 hours were chaos. The company exploded into scandal, the media spinning headlines faster than the truth could catch up. Coal empire crumbles. One read, CEO accused of fraud, screamed another. They painted Ethan as the villain, the monster in $1,000 suit. But I knew the man beneath the mask. The one who looked at me like I was both his sin and salvation. And I wasn't going to let him go down for something he didn't do. I stood in the rain outside the courthouse, clutching the flash drive that held every secret, every dirty transaction, every forged signature, every piece of proof that Ethan was innocent. My hands trembled, but my heart didn't. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. He had saved me from my own chains. Now it was my turn to save him. When I walked into that courtroom, I didn't see a CEO. I saw a man stripped of everything. Ethan sat alone at the defense table, wrists cuffed, suit wrinkled, eyes hollow. But when he looked up and saw me, something flickered inside him like a dying flame sparking one last time. "Why are you here?" he whispered when I took the stand. "To tell the truth," I said. He shook his head, almost smiling through the pain. "You're going to ruin yourself. Then I'll ruin myself for the right reason." I told the court everything, how Ethan had tried to expose his father's corruption, how he'd been framed for the crimes he was trying to erase, how he'd protected people who didn't even know they were being saved. When the evidence played on the screen behind me, the room went silent. And in that silence, Ethan finally looked free. The charges were dropped. The empire fell. Coal Industries was gone within a month, its glass towers emptied, its name erased from the skyline. But Ethan didn't care. He'd lost his father's world, and maybe that was the point. He disappeared again, this time by choice. No headlines. No trace. Just a note. "You gave me something I didn't deserve, redemption. But you deserve peace, and I can't give that to you. Don't come looking for me." I read it 100 times. Then I tore it apart. Because if there's one thing I learned from him, it's that love isn't about running away from the storm, it's about walking through it together. Took me 6 months to find him. 6 months of chasing whispers and fragments of rumors. Until one day, I found him on a small coastal town in Oregon, a place so quiet it felt untouched by the world. He was working at a bookstore by the ocean, wearing a plain white shirt, hair longer now, beard unshaven. When I walked in, he froze mid-sentence, his hand trembling over a stack of paperbacks. "Alex," he breathed, like he was saying a name he'd buried long ago. "Miss me," I said, smiling through tears. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of waves filled the space between us. Then, slowly, he walked around the counter, hesitant, afraid to believe I was real. "I told you not to come," he said softly. "And you should know by now," I replied, stepping closer. "I don't listen." He laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in months. It broke something inside me. "I'm not the same man," he whispered. "I know," I said. "You're better." He looked away, eyes wet. "You shouldn't have forgiven me." "I didn't." He blinked. "I chose you." And that's when he finally broke. He pulled me into his arms like the world was ending, holding me so tight I could feel every shattered piece of his soul pressing against mine. The bookstore faded away. The storm, the lies, the years, all of it disappeared in that moment. For the first time, there was no power, no fear, no control. Just love. Pure. Unapologetic. Unbreakable. We moved into a small house overlooking the cliffs, the kind of place where the wind carried secrets and the nights smelled like salt and rain. Ethan started painting again, something he hadn't done since he was a kid. I wrote about survival, forgiveness, and the strange beauty of falling for someone who once terrified you. Some nights, when the wind howled through the open windows, we'd sit by the fireplace, wrapped in silence. He'd rest his head on my shoulder, and I'd trace the scars on his hand, reminders of the man he used to be. "You ever regret it?" he'd ask. "Which part?" "Choosing me." I'd smile. "You're not something I regret, Ethan. You're the reason I stopped running." He'd kiss me, then slow, careful, as if afraid he might wake up and find me gone. But I wasn't going anywhere. Love didn't fix us overnight. We still had nightmares. We still fought. We still flinched at ghosts that lived only in memory. But every morning, when the sun climbed over the horizon and bathed the ocean in gold, we started again. Ethan would brew coffee while I wrote. Sometimes he'd sneak behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his breath warm against my neck. "You're still too quiet," he'd tease. "Maybe I'm still plotting something," I'd whisper. He'd smile, that rare, soft smile, the one only I got to see. "Plotting to love me forever?" Something like that. A year later, we opened a small art gallery, not to sell, but to tell stories. Each piece had a title, a memory, a moment of pain turned into beauty. The opening night was crowded with strangers, yet all I could see was him, standing beside me, alive and unashamed. As the crowd applauded, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "We made it." I took his hand and squeezed it gently. "No," I said, smiling. "We chose it. Because love, real love, isn't something you fall into. It's something you fight for." That night, under the stars, we walked along the cliffs. The ocean roared below us, endless and wild. He turned to me, wind in his hair, moonlight in his eyes. "You ever think about how it started?" he asked. "Every day," I said. "You were the man I shouldn't have loved. And yet, I smiled. You're the man I'd choose again in every life, every version of me." He kissed me, then slow, deep, infinite. The kind of kiss that feels like a promise whispered to the universe. And as the waves crashed below, I realized something I should have known all along. I wasn't his weakness. He wasn't my redemption. We were each other's freedom. Two souls who learned that even in the most chaotic world, love can still be the quietest kind of rebellion. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.